Welcome to my site, everybody. My name is Paul Smyres, and if you explore my content here, you'll find I've been talking a lot about world transition, esoteric philosophy, mythology, and a lot of perception, information, and so on. I'm a student of meditation. I've been practicing for many, many years, and I've talked a lot about the various kinds of predictions and so on of world transition, the various so-called yugas and ages that we talk about. And I have made a lot of commentary about the potential for certain kinds of situations that we can get into as a species here on this planet, this global situation that we have here, that are way beyond the politics, okay? There's a lot of political stuff going on, and we all know about that, and it's on the news and so on. But beyond that, there's a very, very old tradition and teachings from literally thousands of years ago about the various transitions that this physical planet comes into over the many centuries and millennia, which have effect on society and the various civilizations that have risen and fallen. And we know there's lots of monuments around the world, things we can't even produce today, and we don't understand where these people came from, what their mindset was, and so on, and why do they build these things like pyramids and so on. And a lot of it has to do with a concept that is hard for us to understand in the modern era. Is called catastrophism. It means that over the long, long millennia of human history on this planet, there's been not just a slow evolution that goes slowly up and we're all progressing and everything gets better and better. It's not like that. It actually has spikes and collapses, and that there's been many civilizations and different cultures on this planet and doing very strange things compared for our perception. I mean, for example, building pyramids with underground things and so on. I mean, what's with that going on? You know, we don't understand. Why do they build caves? Why do they have like huge underground caverns where people live, you see? And there's a lot of things that we don't understand about the mythology that we've been taught. Now, what I try to do is relate the modern understanding of geology and so on, and I'm not a great geologist and professor. What I do is I'm a reporter, and I listen to a lot of experts and all different across the spectrum, and I just try to convey, okay, this is what I've learned, and I'm going to point you in the direction of go look at this particular type of search. Go down this rabbit hole, you might say, and you'll find out that there's a lot more going on in this existence besides the politics, the red and blue and so on, and this country alone. There's just a lot. It's a very, very deep, deep thing that we're going through here. And I've been talking about it for about 20 years. And when I was in college in the 1970s, we always used to talk about 1998. Edgar Casey says, well, Atlantis is going to rise and all this stuff's going to happen. And there's just been a lot of religious teachings and so on, that there's these yugas and there's so on, and life transitions and human society transitions, and old civilizations are gone and wiped off the map and so on. So I talk about this stuff, and some people call me a little bit of an alarm clock or a rooster, like annoying people with my predictions and talk about potential catastrophes and so on. But the reality is, if we look ourselves in the mirror every day and we say, look, today might be the day an asteroid hits. Okay, it's probably not going to happen, probably not. But there's a lot of other smaller things that happen, that one person, the day they looked themselves in the mirror, and by the end of the day, their family was dead or gone, or that something, or their whole country got invaded or something. I mean, there are transitions that happen in society that are really catastrophic. Okay, and if we talk to geologists and people like that, they know that, look, the Earth has a tremendous history of just absolutely incredible things going on geologically. For example, we know that once upon a time, about over New York City, there was like ice of like a mile and a half thick or something like that. It's like, oh my God, like what happened to that? It's like, that's, when that all ice melted, it raised the sea levels. And oh my God, all around the world, something happened, and we hear about it with the floodness and so on. See, so there are many, many historical examples of major catastrophes that are natural and way beyond the political spectrum and all that stuff, and where whole societies were literally eradicated. Once upon a time, Egypt, for example, what's now the Sahara's desert, used to be a lush place long time ago, some thousands of years ago. And what happened? It's just like nothing now. There's whale fossils and bones in the desert because once upon a time there was ocean over there. It just washed over the whole northern Africa and just... So today I'm going to talk about a particular type of thing that is way off the... Okay, this is like... Forget the political stuff and all that stuff that's going on, the theater that we hear about in the news and so on. Nature has things that happen. We know that because we see pockmarks of all kinds of asteroids and things that have hit the ocean and so on this earth and so on. It's happened before, and we hear the legends. But there's one particular thing that is not in the radar of even the public media, because you have to go down, you have to really search for this information. I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to point you in the right directions, okay? Go look at these people and listen to, you know, their conversation and research and scientists and so on, okay? But I'll tell you a little story that I heard in my research over the years. Back in the 1980s, around, I think it was 1983, there was a situation where they sent up this satellite. I think it was called the WISE, a wide angle. It was an infrared satellite, okay? And what it did was it scanned the space in the sky, in the night sky, for frequencies that are beyond, lower than our visual ability, the infrared. We can't see stars that are in the infrared. But there's things out there in space that are radiating a kind of light that we can't see with our naked eyes, and they're very hard to detect. So apparently in 1983, around that time, there was a satellite that was set up, and it spotted something up there that was an infrared red dwarf type of situation, being, planetoid thing or star, dead star, or brown dwarf or something, and it was way out there, and they concluded that in about 50 or 60 years it was going to be coming into the solar system and cause havoc. Okay, now I'm not telling you necessarily, please understand this video, I'm not trying to say that everything I say is exactly going to happen. I'm just saying that there are people who did this, and if the government believes, or if rich people and authorities believe something's going to happen, you see, that's the reality. They start acting on it. Okay, so what happened was the military got involved and realized, oh shit, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but there's going to be some stuff going on in the solar system here in about 50 or 60 years, and what are we going to do about it? Because the Earth might shift on its axis or slow in rotation or stuff like that. So what happened was, and I'm going to, send you down the rabbit holes and look for yourself, because there's hours and hours of information that you can listen to. But the governments of the world got involved, and the very wealthy, and you know how they are, the usual suspects, the supreme bankers of the world that think they own countries. Those types of people started getting involved. Well, we better start building some bunkers. So now they've been building these bunkers in the United States, around the world, for a long time. They have these tunneling machines. You can go look them up. There's all kinds of tunnels and massive bases underground, and there people come out and say, I worked on those bases, and you'd be shocked to know how big they are, and all there's stuff going on, the continuity of government plans. Okay, so put this into perspective of what's happening now in our culture, okay? They made the seed bank in Norway with Bill Gates involved, and they wanted to put those seeds up there. And why the hell they build that up in Norway, okay? It was somewhere way up north. Well, maybe the Earth's going to shift, or maybe they know something's going to happen, and they got to bury those seeds. So there's this, look that up, the seed project involving Bill Gates. They announced it was public information. They're saving all these seeds from around the world, and why are they doing that? You see, so the context here is that the government believed that there's something coming into our solar system, and this was like in the 1980s, and here we are 40 years later, and it was like, okay, we're getting close to that time. They said some shit's going to hit the fan. Now, I'm 70 years old, and I've been looking into this stuff since the 1970s in college, in Edgar Cayce and all that. So what I have concluded is like, okay, there's some context to what's going on politically right now is that people believe that the so-called end of the world, or we got to go there, get ourselves in bunkers, and then the political stuff get involved in the Cold War. Okay, it's the Russians. The Russians are going to bomb us. That's why we need to build these bunkers. You see, they got to justify it somehow. They can't just come out and say, excuse me, but in about 50 years, something's going to come through our solar system and cause havoc on our Earth, and we better get ourselves under the bunkers. And we can't tell you that, so we got to tell you some other thing, like climate change, okay? No. I'm talking about this video here is about the over-the-top black swan type events, that the big, huge, massive elephant in the room that very few people even want to talk about. Certainly not going to hear about it in public media. But there are preparations going on, and some of the things that are going on politically make sense now because they understand that they're preparing for something. They're trying to get everybody herded into this certain situation and behaving themselves, and they don't want anybody to have guns, and they're not telling us the whole truth, okay? So that's one of the things, is a solar system event where some kind of a big object is coming into our solar system and disturbing the electrogravitics or the gravity of the solar system and upsetting and causing tilts. And if the Earth starts rotating a little bit slower, I got a little model here. Okay, the east coast of the United States, you can see, is right about right over here. Okay, and the Earth is going this way, see? Now, they say that if the Earth slows in its rotation just a tiny bit, okay, then all little seas around the world are going to be slopping around and causing all kinds of havoc all around the coastlines of the entire planet, just sloshing around. If it slows in rotation just a little bit, okay? Now, we don't know if some big object comes into our solar system, or something happens, our sun goes into a part of the solar system that there's all kinds of new energy coming on, then this Earth might slow in rotation. And they said that once upon a time that there was 360 days in a year, and then it went to 365. There was a sort of a calendar switch some thousands of years ago, and I mean, you kind of wonder, like, well, maybe something happened. Maybe the Earth started changing its rotation or something. See? So that's one aspect of this thing, of this new, I call it the elephant in the room. The other thing is solar activity. The sun has outbursts. We know that. It's happened in 1859, the Carrington event. The sun has outbursts from time to time, and it's cyclical because the sun is electrical. There's a whole pulse thing going on with the sun, the 11-year cycle, and has the cycles of the sunspots and so on. The energy that the sun drifts through the galaxy as it goes on 250 million years around the whole center of the galaxy. And that sun goes through various aspects, various energy fields and so on, that crosses the galactic equator at times, and there's things, it's periodic. That's why they call the ages. That's why they call the yugas. There's a solar system mechanism, a cosmic mechanism that we're in, okay? And it's a pulsing thing, and the sun has its things, and every once in a while it explodes and it flashes out, and it has a nova or micronova, and one of the cycles is about 12,000 some hundred years. Now, that's how it gets so hot on the Earth that the glaciers melted, because there's a big mystery. Well, why did all those glaciers melt? I mean, can you imagine? You talk about global warming, like a mile and a half or two of glaciers, ice just melting fast. How did that happen? It had to be a whole lot of heat. And where'd that come from? It certainly wasn't from the SUVs back then. It had to be from the sun. The sun had a solar outburst, and this is why there's been very few cultures that survive for thousands of years. Now, some of them built pyramids, like the Egyptians, okay? They had a whole culture, and if you look at the architecture of these pyramids, and holy shit, I mean, a wave could wash over that great pyramid and it'd wash back, and if you're underground, deep down underneath there, you'd probably be fine if you got food. So there's a lot of mysteries about ancient traditions and catastrophes that have happened on this planet. And what I'm getting to right now is that there are experts out there explaining this in great detail, and I'll try to send you some of the links. But if you look at pole shift and magnetic pole shift and continental shifting and rotation of the earth and all that, you'll start getting down into some of those conversations with these experts. We're talking about geologists, we're talking about astrophysicists, we're not talking about politicians. Politicians don't know nothing, okay? They don't want you to listen to physicists, really. They don't want you to listen to anyone who's going to tell you the truth, basically. But we know that now. Censorship is very common. It's happening all the time. So, once again, I'm trying to put my 2 cents in. If anything I say helps people a little bit and they feel better, happier, and healthier, and so on, or that's fantastic. But specifically, I have grandchildren. I have 7 grandchildren, and I'm 70 years old. My oldest grandchild is only about 15 years old. What's their life going to be like when they're my age? Can you imagine? If something happening, the governments are building these bunkers and they have all these underground storage facilities and so on, and what do you think is going to happen? They're preparing for something. It may not affect me. I'm probably, maybe if I'm lucky, I'll live to be 90. I'm 20 more years if I'm lucky. But my grandkids, your kids, it matters. This big elephant in the room that I'm talking about is there's things happening in the cosmos way beyond the politics. And the governments know about this, and certain elite people and royalty certainly know about this stuff that's going on. They know that there's underground bunkers. They know about the seed storage. They know all about all that stuff. And some of these people like Billy Boy Gates, he's got this huge yacht that looks like it might be able to survive like a cosmic wave or something. But, the thing is that nature's really powerful. And some of the plans that they make for these underground bunkers, I mean, the right kind of earthquake, I mean, I'm sorry. It's just like crack and that's it. You're gone. And going to the moon, I mean, the whole solar system. You see, the sun explodes. You see, it transmits a tremendous amount of energy at some points every so often. There's a pulse that goes on. The sun, the pulse of the galaxy, okay? And it's been happening for a long, long time. And about 12,500 years ago, we know the glaciers melted and something happened and the seas started rising for hundreds of years. They had all the flood myths around the world, huge catastrophic flood myths, and they just swept the world. Everything is away, gone, covered with sand. So what I'm getting at in this particular video is we cannot assume that we're not in that kind of a situation, because there's a lot of religious prophecies and so on that have to do with, God did this and he's going to punish the wicked and all that. But when you really come down to it, predictable things are basically astronomical. There's a science to the solar system, the cosmos. Okay, we're just like little kind of ants on this land on the earth somewhere. We're just fragments, little fireflies. That's all. We're going to live for a little while and be gone. The Earth has been here for a really, really long time. And other civilizations have been here. So what I'm trying to express here is just let people know, look, go beyond the politics, go beyond the day-to-day news, and start looking into some of these things like underground bases, solar radiation, solar micronova, solar nova, pole shift. The magnetic pole of this Earth right now is different than the physical pole. Okay, that's why we have this deviation in aviation. When the compass points to an area that's not at the physical North Pole, because the Earth is tilted like this. Okay, and it goes around and around in precession, and it's spinning like this, and it encounters various kinds of energy that's radiated off the sun, because the sun is the center. So whatever happens on the sun is going to affect the entire solar system. And there's actually a government agency that keeps track of the so-called wobble of the Earth. I looked it up one time. There's an Earth wobble agency. It has to do with keeping track of the wobble of the Earth. Because like I said in the beginning, if the Earth slows down its rotation just a little bit, or its tilt, even if it's just tilting a half a degree, it's going to slosh tidal waves all around the world. All around the world. So don't go be living there, you know. And there's one guy out there, and I respect him. I don't understand all his research, but he's a very knowledgeable person, and he says that the Earth has a history of switching and rotation. The Egyptians said that, and basically they said the sun stood still on for a day is because the Earth was rotating in a clockwise way, and then it stopped because of the magnetic pole, the magnetic field of the Earth integrating with the magnetic emanations from the sun, changed the polarity of the Earth magnetic field, and shifted the Earth to switch in the other direction. Now, think about that. Now, it hasn't happened for a really, really long time. They say it only happens every 12,500 so many years or something like that. How would we know? How would any living person know in the last 600 years of science? How would we know if the Earth actually switches rotation? If it happens every 12,500 years? We wouldn't know. Unless the mythology told us so. So, I want to close this out and make it fairly short, but go look down this rabbit hole. This is the big one, the cosmic, the total Earth physical catastrophe that has nothing to do with the politics, okay? Including a lot of these old rats, these politicians that have been around for a long time. They'll get wiped. They'll get wiped if this really happens, okay? Because we're talking about, like, oceans, like, swamping over the entire coastlines of North America or all around the world and knocking out cities, or maybe electromagnetic pulse from their sun knocking out all our satellites, and now we're back to like making fires with rubbing sticks together if we could find a lighter, maybe. You see, we had an ice age for many thousands of years on this planet. Think about that for a minute. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years of ice age. And people living in caves and making little flint things and hunting with a bow and arrow. That's what human beings did for a long time. And the Egyptian mythology says, okay, well, that's every so often, just we're back to be children again, start over. Hunting, gathering, making our houses. So, I hope this doesn't shake people up, but it's a serious thing, because we may be living in a generation. I don't say it's happening tomorrow. I probably won't live to see it, but I believe that sometime in the next 20, 30, 40 years, we're bound to see one of these cosmic cycles happen that just completely change the planet. I mean, all our technology could be gone. If our cars don't work, if our pumps don't work, electricity is gone, we're going to be hunting and gathering. So that's my 2 cents for today, and I hope it illuminates a few people and gets them interested. There's a lot of links. Try to follow in some of the tags in this video. Magnetic pole shift, earthquake zones and solar outbursts and so on. So, okay, thanks again for listening, and hope to see you in some of my other videos. Explore my content, and please like and share if you find it interesting.